Hey guys, welcome back to another week of What's for Dinner. This one is going to be a little bit different because I'm doing all $5 dinner ideas. So these are some really budget-friendly options for your family. As we get into the holiday season, it's really easy to go over budget, especially on groceries. So definitely make sure that you are planning out your meals. Try and incorporate some of these really frugal meal ideas, and I think it will help you stay on budget during this holiday season. So I'm sharing lots of budget-friendly options today. If this is your first time stopping by my channel, I just want to say welcome. My name is Caitlin. I do mostly cooking content on this channel, lots of what's for dinners, crockpot meals, and things like that, with a little bit of motherhood thrown in the mix. So if that is something that you're interested in, make sure you are subscribed. But let's go ahead and get into all of these dinner ideas. For this first recipe, I'm making some garlic butter chicken bites. These were super delicious and very easy to throw together. So in my bag here, I have 2 large chicken breasts that I just cut up into some pretty big chunks. I added in about 2 tablespoons of flour, along with 1.5 teaspoons of Italian seasoning. And then I just added some salt and pepper to taste. I would probably say I added about ½ teaspoon of each in there. And then the recipe did not call for this, but I did decide to add in a little bit of paprika, a little bit of garlic powder, and then I just shook all of this together in the bag. You can also just throw this in a bowl and coat it that way, but I just thought it would be a little bit easier to coat it in the bag. Now that the chicken is coated, I'm just heading over to my skillet and I'm melting about a tablespoon of butter and about a tablespoon of some olive oil. I'm just heating that up together. Make sure it's really well incorporated and mixed together before adding in your chicken, and make sure it is all the way heated up. Now here's that chicken that I had seasoned up. I'm just throwing it right into my pan and letting it cook. It probably took about 5 minutes on each side. I did make sure to get it really nice and brown, and I only wanted to flip it about 1 time just to really make sure that it stayed nice and crispy that way. After my chicken had completely cooked through, then I'm going to be adding in my minced garlic. The recipe called for about 2 or 3 cloves of minced garlic, so I just added in the pre-minced kind. I threw that in there for about 30 seconds or so, just until that garlic is nice and fragrant. You definitely don't want to cook it too long or it will actually burn the garlic. And then I did also add in some dried parsley. I didn't add this on camera. I added it a little bit later on because I didn't realize the recipe called for it, but this is what our dinner looked like. I just served it with a salad and a side of some roasted cauliflower. And this was such a good, affordable dinner option. For this next dinner, I'm making some sloppy joes. This is definitely a family favorite of ours. So I will say I actually doubled this recipe. So technically it would be more than $5, but we had company over, so I wanted to double it. But normally when I make this, this is definitely under a $5 meal, which is great and affordable. So I'm just starting off by sauteing up 1 onion in some olive oil. I'm just sauteing this until it is nice and soft. And then I'm adding in my ground beef. I already had mine cooked and ready to go, so I'm basically just warming it up before adding in my minced garlic, but otherwise you can add your ground beef in when you go to cook your onions. I'm not sure where the footage went of me adding in the garlic, but I did add in a couple cloves of minced garlic. Let that cook up for about 30 seconds before adding in the rest of my ingredients. So here I have ½ cup of ketchup, ½ cup of barbecue sauce, 1 8-ounce can of tomato sauce, a ¼ cup of brown sugar. I'm also adding in about 1.5 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. That adds a lot of tanginess. And then you're going to want about 2 tablespoons of mustard. And you're just going to mix all of this together and really let it come up to a simmer. You're basically just going to let this simmer for about 10 minutes until everything is really nice and heated through. So like I mentioned, I ended up doubling this recipe, so it cost around $10, but this was a ton of food. It fed us for multiple meals, and we also had guests, and this was just a really delicious dinner. My kids absolutely love this sloppy joe recipe. For this next dinner, I'm making a cheeseburger casserole. I saw this recipe on Pinterest and I thought it would be a good one to try out. So I'm just starting off by getting my ground beef browned up. Once it was about halfway done cooking, then I'm adding in my 1 white onion, and I'm also adding in 1 green pepper that was chopped up and ready to go. I'm just gonna cook this up until the peppers and the onions start to soften. I did decide to add in a little bit of salt and pepper just to taste for some extra flavor, but you're just going to get all of this cooked together. Once the beef, peppers, and onions had fully cooked through, I'm adding in a couple cloves of some minced garlic. Garlic is a great way to add a lot of flavor, but it's also a very cheap option. So if you are looking for some extra flavor, but you're on a budget, garlic is a really good way to go for that. So once that garlic had cooked up for about 30 seconds, I'm adding in my seasonings. So I just did 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. I added in about half a teaspoon of some chili powder, along with half a teaspoon of onion powder, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, and then I did about half a teaspoon of black pepper as well as some salt, and it turned out really good. The sauce in this recipe is really simple. You're just going to want 1 can of the Italian style diced tomatoes along with 1 8-ounce can of tomato sauce, and you're just going to let all of this come up to a simmer for a few minutes just until everything is heated through. While the meat mixture is cooking up, I am getting my noodles ready to go. So you're going to want about 4 cups of egg noodles. I chose to use the regular size. They're not the wide ones, so they're a little bit smaller than the ones that I normally use. I did make sure to salt the water for some extra flavor. And now our sauce is all ready to go. Once the noodles are done, you can just go ahead and add those right into your pasta sauce. Once I had all of my noodles incorporated in there, I added in my corn. I chose to use about half a cup of corn here. You can also add in some extra veggies if you want, but I just served them on the side. And then I'm also adding in about 1 cup of cheddar cheese and just letting that melt into the pasta. As soon as that's melted, we're actually going to be topping it with some more cheddar cheese, and then we're going to be throwing it in the oven for just a little bit. Now I'm just topping this with the extra cheddar cheese and throwing it into a 375-degree oven for about 20 minutes just until that cheese really browns up and gets nice and melted. Now if you don't have a Dutch oven, you can just throw this in a 9x13 casserole dish and that would be perfect. But of course I'm just trying to save on the dishes, so I just threw it in there in my Dutch oven. This is what it ends up looking like. It's super delicious, very easy to throw together. My kids absolutely loved this one and it was very budget friendly. For this next dinner, I have another pasta dish. We're going to be making a tuna casserole. So I am measuring out about 4 cups of elbow noodles. Yes, I know it looks like my measuring cup is an overflowing mess, and that's just because this was actually a 3/4 measuring cup, so I was adding a little bit extra. Go ahead and make sure to salt up your water and then just get these noodles cooked up until they are al dente. Now we are heading over to my skillet. I'm just heating up some olive oil and adding in about 1 white onion for some extra flavor. I'm just going to saute this up until the onions are nice and softened. Now I'm just adding in my minced garlic. So I just added in a couple cloves of garlic here, and I'm just sauteing it up for about 30 seconds until that garlic is nice and fragrant. Then for the sauce, I'm adding in 2 cans of cream of chicken, super easy and affordable. You're also going to want some tuna. I usually will add about 2 cans of tuna, but if you want a little bit more, you can definitely add an extra can in there. You're gonna want about half a cup of milk to kind of thin this out, and then just add in your salt and pepper to taste and let this come up to a simmer. Now this next step is optional. You can add some veggies if you want to. I chose to add a mix of some peas and some carrots. I probably added in about 1.5 cups here. I do think it adds a lot of really good flavor. Sneak some veggies in there, so I really do like adding it. And I just let that simmer for a little bit before adding in my cheese. Let that melt up, and then you're gonna add your pasta right into the sauce mixture. Now my noodles are all cooked, so I'm just dumping them right into my skillet and getting it all mixed together before adding it into my casserole dish. Now if you're using a Dutch oven, you can just go ahead and top it with your cheese here, but I did not use my Dutch oven on this night, so I just transferred it over to a 9x13 casserole dish. Definitely make sure to spray it so that your pasta doesn't stick. And then I'm just gonna throw this into a 350-degree oven for right around like 15 minutes. I don't put it in for very long, just basically to get that cheese on top really nice and melted. Here is that casserole dish when it comes out of the oven. It's actually really good and very cheesy and delicious. It's almost like a glorified mac and cheese with a little bit of protein and veggies added in there. Alright guys, that is going to wrap up this week of What's for Dinner. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you have not already. And I will catch you all in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.
As a young girl, the fields were mine. We played hide and seek for hours, raised our shadows among the pines. So offshore, playful and free, without a care.